New Haven police have declared that their use of force was justified. Chief Tony Reyes and the department released body camera footage to justify the ruling. In the footage, you can hear officers shouting to get back and hold the line. You can see projectiles of bottles and batteries flying at the officers. This led to the use of pepper spray to get the crowd under control. Police say someone in the crowd was rallying people to gain access to the building. After repeated attempts to curtail the attempts, police say some protesters tried to enter the PD anyways. Internal Affairs reviewed body camera and social media video as well as reports of the incident to conclude the actions were justified. No officers were disciplined.
Many of the protesters that participated in the protest in front of the police department had gone to the Bridgeport Police Department. They had forced their way in, and they had vandalized officer memorials and vandalized the police departments. They were forcing their way in as a group to go into the police department. That's what precipitated the use of force. Until that point, we were there in plain uniform, ready to just allow people to protest.
Police say that arrest is looming for a protester who threw projectiles at the officers. Police say they also learned from this event and started to work with organizers to plan protests in front of their PD. Just a couple of weeks later, 5,000 people were able to peacefully protest right here on these same steps. In New Haven, Dave Puglisi, Fox 61 News.
And just into the Fox 61 newsroom, we are hearing from some of those protesters at that incident. Dave Puglisi spoke with a group of demonstrators after the department's conclusion. They say they went to speak with the mayor, who was at New Haven Police Headquarters that day. Instead, they were met with force, and they feel this investigation wasn't to seek justice, but rather to intimidate the protesters.
All I see in the video, before anyone even marches forward, are police officers trying to push people back and walking up to them past the line that they drew and pushing people forward. And then as people decided to take peaceful step forward, no one pushed and shoved officers. People took a step forward to walk up to the door to call the mayor down. We were pepper sprayed and people were shoved down the stairs. Some people were, and children were pepper sprayed. It's completely absurd that we are in a state and in a city that is complicit, and a city that says it's complicit with that type of violence.